Ladies and gentlemen, we've got an update regarding the war situation in eastern Ukraine, with the United States preparing to ease sanctions on Russia as President Trump pushes to restore ties and end the war in Ukraine. And we've also got a new report talking about possibly Trump asking Russia to moderate the negotiations between the United States and Iran in regards to the nuclear situation in the Middle East. So, what we're seeing now is a shift of the United States away from a lot of the European countries. Unfortunately, the Europeans have gotten extremely liberal, and our values simply do not align with them at this current moment. It's not every country in Europe, but it's a lot of the main big players like Germany, the UK, France, and others. And you're seeing Trump take a more of a neutral approach, with which many people that despise Trump will say is more pro-Russian. But in reality, it is, I would say, necessary for the United States to have a cordial relationship with Russia, considering the military might of both the US and of Russia. Now, what this comes down to is a potential economic relationship with Russia, and a bigger relationship if there is mediation when it comes to the United States-Iran negotiations with Russia being involved. This could be a bigger relationship between two superpowers. And so the question becomes, as we saw another recent update, and I'm sure you guys know, Zelensky has come out and said, yes, I'm sorry, or I'm not sure if I think he did apologize, and then he said, I feel bad for what happened in the White House. We're allies to the United States. We need to get this minerals deal done. Zelensky is begging Trump at this point to do the minerals deal. The minerals deal would tie the U.S. to Ukraine for the foreseeable future. Now, in terms of what the United States would give for security within that area because of the minerals that the U.S. would need to extract, that's unknown. What Russia wants is a counter deal with the United States in the mineral-rich Donbass region, which Russia right now has control of, and that would be part of an annexation process when a peace deal gets signed. We hope it gets signed. I mean, people are talking about, well, there's escalation with the United Kingdom now pledging sending troops. I think the troops are more so a negotiating tactic. Right now, the European NATO countries, let's just say the EU and the UK, they are signaling to Russia that we fully support Ukraine. So when the Ukrainians go into the negotiations with Russia, they will say, we still have all of Europe on our side, or at least most of Europe, the big players in Europe. And the reason that Zelensky wants to do this minerals deal is because he also wants to be able to say, we also have the United States on our side. So we're not just going to agree to any deal that you want in terms of the amount of land you want annexed, in terms of the stipulations of us not joining NATO, although I think that's what it's going to have to be for sure. There's going to have to be, whether it's 20 years, whether it's indefinitely, Ukraine not joining NATO. This is just the current power dynamic between Russia and Ukraine, and that's really all it is right now, unless the European countries started to say, we want troops engaging with the Russians, NATO troops engaging with Russians. There is no way Trump would agree to that. There is no way he would honor the Article 5. It would not happen. And so that would expel the United States from NATO. They would just leave. There's like a year process in terms of leaving. It doesn't matter. The United States can just go. We're just that big of a power, and the United States is not interested in making this a bigger war. And I don't think Europe is either. I think this is posturing for Ukraine when they're negotiating with Russia to say, we don't have to give in to all of your demands because we still have backing from major Western powers. In terms of funding, you saw Zelensky fly straight from DC to London and meet with Starmer, the prime minister there, and then all of them had an emergency meeting in London as well, and they did the photo op there. What you're seeing right now is the current dynamic with many Republicans in the United States realizing, if you go against any type of mass immigration in Europe, if you're not super liberal, you are racist. It's a smear campaign. It goes back to World War II and kind of the groundwork of this idea of why mass immigration should be accepted. And if it's not accepted, then you are a disgusting racist. And so it's like, why are we still supporting these countries that don't share Republican values? Sure, they share liberal values. That's why all the liberals in the United States love the European countries. They're all extremely liberal. they're certainly not conservative. I mean, outside of you see things happening in Poland and maybe Italy to a lesser degree, those countries possibly not really supporting sending troops. And I think the troops are more so a tactic for negotiations. But Trump and Putin seemingly are developing a very solid diplomatic relationship, which is good for everyone involved. You do not want the United States and Russia on horrible terms. And then there's the, oh, you're enabling Russia to invade a smaller country. Well, the United States and other Western powers had serious involvement in Ukraine and pushing Ukraine to the West over the past 2 decades. I mean, really, after they became independent, they were a Soviet state until 91. There's been major Western involvement. And it's just like, well, Mexico, imagine the Chinese started influencing Mexico. Do you think the United States would allow that? And I'm not saying, oh, it's apples to apples, but come on, guys. This is a complex situation. It's not the big bad Russians go in and just want more land in Ukraine. That's not exactly what happened in this situation. And even if we're talking about 1/5 of Ukraine being annexed, when it comes to, and this is what the next question is, will Trump's relationship with Putin make it to where there's no need for more of an invasion into the rest of Ukraine? Because that's what a lot of the European countries are worried about. They're worried about rearming and then an invasion. And I just saw some European lady, I forget who it was, but she's like, we need to go through a rearmament. We need to go on, she didn't say the offensive, but I mean, they're really talking about revving up their militaries in Europe, which is exactly what Trump wanted. The people that defend Europe should be Europeans, not Americans. And that's what Trump has been saying. And now it's happening. They are going to start rearming. And they really started in 2022 because they got scared with Russia. But when it comes to the United States' relationship with Russia, having a good relationship with them is a very, very good thing. They'll say it's enabling an adversary who's invading a country. I mean, we've had manipulation with NATO expansion for many decades. And so when you talk about 1/5 of Ukraine, oh, he's not going to stop there. Well, they can barely even get 1/5 of Ukraine. There's a much bigger risk of nuclear bombs than a Russian military invasion of all of Europe. Do people understand that? So let's stop the bigger risk, which would be the nuclear bombs, by having a good relationship with Russia. That's what Trump is saying. And that, I think, is what's going to happen. The question now, when it comes to the minerals deal, will there even be a minerals deal? Because the minerals deal was the repayment plan. And it was honestly good for Ukraine because, yes, Ukraine was never going to get those minerals anyways. They needed investment from other people. It's about $12 trillion worth of minerals in Ukraine. It's less now because they've lost the Donbass region, which is really rich in the rare earths. They still have other mineral deposits in central Ukraine, in western Ukraine, that the United States would be able to extract. For Ukraine, it's good because it ties the United States to the region as some type of protection because they have to protect their minerals. What Russia is doing is saying, we have more minerals. We don't want U.S. influence in Ukraine. Come to a deal with us instead. We will give you a better deal. We do not want your involvement in extracting minerals, which as a byproduct will be a security deterrent. Now, whether or not Russia would do anything in 4 or 5 years' time into Ukraine, that's when Trump made the statement, what if a bomb dropped on your head? Because they're asking, well, what is Putin going to do? Is he going to reinvade in 3 or 4 years? Nobody really knows. But we can say if we have a good relationship and we don't alienate Russia, there's less of a chance of Russia doing things radically bad against the West. So that's really all Trump is saying. So we create a solid diplomatic relationship with Russia. Maybe we do a minerals deal with both Ukraine and Russia. I know people that say, no, we want to get out of the Eastern European area. And we don't need the minerals deal, even though it would, in the long term, you would think, make the United States money. People have also questioned, are the minerals even there? Well, I know a lot of the European countries also want minerals as a payback as well. So it's kind of a mess within Ukraine, but there's going to have to be a demilitarized zone somewhere in between central Ukraine and the Donbass region. Where that'll end up being, that's all going to have to be negotiated. We don't know the exact coordinates on it, but the United States negotiating for Russia, Ukraine, and then Russia negotiating for the United States and Iran, this could be a decent relationship with Russia. And you're seeing, just based off of, you look at Republicans versus Democrats, as an extension to Europe, they're way more democratic. Why would Republicans really support what's going on in a lot of these European countries where, I mean, you have like white people standing up saying, no, this is horrible. Why are all these people coming in? They're destroying the culture, and then they go to jail? And you think we're going to stand up and be like, oh yeah, we love Europe, really? Now, Trump is realizing it's bad, and this behavior is unacceptable within Europe in the way that, well, I mean, we can say it's unacceptable. If they want to keep governing the way they're governing, that's fine. They're not going to get the United States as a war machine to help them. We don't agree with the way that they are governing in their laws right now. So if the U.S. does do some type of deal with Russia, I also think it would include the United States annexing Greenland, because we're already going to have our relationship with Europe undoubtedly under Trump was going to get worse because Trump wants to end this war. And I think best case scenario for Europe would be, I mean, there's no way to predict it, but ideally you would drag the war out longer. You would keep the funding to Ukraine going. Russia would get tired. They would, have a bunch of troops exerted in foreign land, and then they would say, all right, we're done with this. And then there'd be negotiations because Russia gets tired. That would require a lot more funding from the United States, something Trump ran on against. He didn't want to fund this war. That's why if the funding continues with Ukraine, there has to be a payback, and the payback would be the minerals deal. But the minerals deal does involve U.S. involvement in Ukraine for future potential decades, or at least the next 5 to 10 years, with the mineral extraction that's going to be needed, depending on how much it ends up being. It's going to be around $500 billion, I think. Trump said it was going to be Trump didn't say it, but I think it's probably being renegotiated because of the public leverage Trump was able to get when Zelensky came to the White House and was very ungrateful, and it made Trump look really good and made Vance look good. And the liberals get all angry, but independent people say, yeah, I mean, Trump is really protecting us, and we respect Trump for that, rather than Biden, who just like is sleeping and he's like, oh yeah, we just gave him, $35 trillion. It's like, I mean, what are you doing? The guy's like sleeping, signing something. It's like $30 billion going over to Ukraine. This is Greece, support our ally, the ally in Europe. It's just, this is a total different situation with Trump in the White House. So it's better to have a good relationship with Russia. Russia has historic ties to that land. This is not Russian talking points. This is just the history. Go back to the Russian Empire, go back to the Soviet Union, go back to 2014, the U.S. manipulation and involvement in the Ukrainian Revolution. I mean, Bill Clinton did sign a deal with Ukraine, but there was nothing bonded to that deal. So it's like, oh, they gave up their nuclear weapons. Yeah, but there was nothing tied to that deal. The U.S., there's nothing to honor. It was just an assurance made by Bill Clinton. So, listen, for Ukraine, they need to try and get this minerals deal done because they need U.S. involvement in Ukraine. It could help protect them, but also the other European countries are going to come together and say, in a negotiation, we will send troops to the DMZ, whatever that ends up being. So somewhere in between central Ukraine, it's about 1/5 of the country is probably going to be annexed. From what I saw, they control 1/5 right now. Now, whether or not in negotiations Ukraine can get some of that land back, would Trump try and do that for Ukraine in negotiations? Maybe with the idea that we would stay out of Ukraine, but they get less land, Russia gets less land, and then we do a minerals deal with Russia. And it would probably be in the Donbass region, or maybe throughout other areas of Western Russia when it comes to their rare earths. I mean, China has a monopoly over the rare earths. We're going to be swimming in rare earths. We're going to be swimming in minerals. We're going to be swimming in lithium. Imagine we get a minerals deal 2-for-1 with Ukraine and Russia, and then we annex Greenland, and we just have all the rare earths now. And this is why this is why elections are important. You get someone like Trump in there, it changes everything. Kamala Harris is like, yeah, we need to give them $40 billion. This is totally different. This is the big leagues here with Trump. And that's why we're about to just cash in. Now, there are pros and cons to doing the minerals deal with both Russia and Ukraine. It could be a 2-for-1. It could be, we're not doing deals with anyone. It could be a deal with just Russia, or it could be a deal with just Ukraine. But either way, it looks like the United States is having more cordial relationships they're building right now. It's like you've got Italy, Poland, the UK and Russia, right? The UK and the United States are kind of at odds. I know Starmer visited. They all did the photo op. They smiled at the White House like, oh, yeah, we love each other. But it's clear the UK does not like the United States' stance on this war. Or this also could be, I mean, listen, I understand Brits getting angry and saying, well, I don't know if I understand them getting angry, but I can understand them having a different approach with Russia because of where Russia is located. I still think they're overreacting, and it's more of they're being crazy because they want U.S. involvement, so they overestimate Russian military power as a way to try and fearmonger Americans into giving more for this war. The idea is, oh, they're going to take over all of Europe. That's what Zelensky said that got Trump angry. You're going to feel it. They take over 1/5 of Ukraine. We're going to feel it, really? It's taking them 2-3 years to do this. They're going to take over all of Europe. Maybe Europe needs to rearm, and that's what they're doing. That's what Trump wanted. All these European countries, we're going to show Trump. We're going to arm our militaries. Yeah, there you go. Defend yourselves. That's good. So America doesn't have to defend you anymore. We just solved it. Trump just solved it. They think they're owning Trump. So this is a complex thing, but this is good news. Trump is understanding. Remember, Trump met with Kim Jong-un. He went to North Korea. You have to meet with these people. It's important to talk so things don't go off the rails. So we'll see what happens, but it does look like there are relationships being formed by Russia and the United States. And these are two big adversaries. There's going to be rumors. Is Russia loyal? Is the United States, so this is just a dynamic of a relationship. This is an easy way to end this Russia-Ukraine conflict. Is Trump hearing out Russia, hearing out Ukraine, trying to meet in the middle with some type of deal? Will there be involvement in Ukraine? We don't know. It depends. Will the United States stay in NATO? Trump has talked about possibly leaving it. There's a lot of right-wingers right now that are echoing the sentiment. Elon Musk said we should leave NATO. What does a new military deal look like? Possibly with Russia, possibly with Japan, possibly with South Korea, possibly with Poland. There's multiple things at play here for Trump and for the United States, and I'm not sure they're going to leave NATO. It'll just depend. It comes with a lot of pros and possibly some cons, including exposing Europe. But do we really care about Europe that much at this point? And would Europe completely get obliterated by Russia? They wouldn't. They would not. It would escalate to nuclear war before Russia invaded half of Europe. That's just where we are now in the modern times. And Russia doesn't have the manpower to do it. So it would be nuclear war before then. So the idea is you stop the nuclear war before it starts by having better relationships with adversaries, possibly even including China. And we've got the China-Taiwan situation, which is in a way similar to Russia-Ukraine, with China having the historical ties to Taiwan. But it's gotten so bad to where they want all of Taiwan, and they've done more aggressive actions. They haven't invaded, but they are going through a process right now to really destroy the morale of the people of Taiwan. And we'll see if it ends up working for them. But we'll see how Trump handles that. It seems like Trump probably wants something back from Taiwan. And Taiwan, they understand that they need to play real nice with the United States. Why do you think they made a $100 billion investment into the United States with the semiconductors? They understand with Trump in, you're going to have to give us something. If you want military support, we need something in return. It's like that with every country outside of Israel. We get that. But when it comes to this, relationships are good with foreign adversaries. You say, oh, we don't agree with their invasion of Ukraine. But even if you think that's bad, this is 1/5 of Ukraine. There has to be a solution to this, and it's not making the war even bigger, especially considering the front line has barely moved in the last year and a half anyways. So that's basically the situation. Either way, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.